He rolled down his window to buy a pen. But when he saw who was selling them, time stopped. And what he did next turned a forgotten friendship into the most unforgettable celebration. The traffic light turned red at the corner of Maple and Fifth, and Daniel Reid, 40, leaned back in the leather seat of his luxury SUV. As the CEO of a national startup chain, his life was built on meetings, mergers, and momentum. But today, something made him look up. A frail woman stood by the median, holding out a small cardboard tray of pens. Her clothes were worn, her hands trembling slightly, but her eyes, kind, calm, familiar, stopped him cold. "No, it can't be," he whispered. He rolled the window down slowly. "Ma'am, are you Mrs. Eleanor Lane?" She turned, startled. Then her face softened. "Danny?" His heart clenched. "Mrs. Lane, it's me. Daniel, from the old block. You used to walk me home from school. You gave me cookies when Mom was working late." She smiled, blinking back tears. "I always knew you'd be someone." Daniel parked the car, right there in the middle of traffic. His driver tried to object, but he didn't hear a word. He got out and walked toward her. "What are you doing here?" "Just trying to keep the lights on," she said gently. "Social Security's not enough, and I didn't want to ask anyone for help." He stared at the pens. Cheap plastic, faded labels, a few sold, most untouched. And suddenly, the memories came rushing back. The woman who stayed behind after PTA meetings when his mom couldn't make it. The one who bought him his first notebook when he couldn't afford school supplies. The one who told him, "Even small hands can build big things." Daniel's throat tightened. "Come with me," he said. "Danny, I still have to—" "No," he interrupted, gently taking the tray from her hands. "You've given enough. Now it's my turn." She looked up, confused. But Daniel, he already knew what he was going to do, and it would be something she and the city would never forget. The ride to Daniel's office was quiet. Eleanor sat in the back seat, holding her handbag close to her chest, her fingers nervously brushing the edges of an old photograph peeking from her wallet. She kept glancing at Daniel like she couldn't believe this was real. Neither could he. Daniel had built empires, negotiated million-dollar deals, and stood on global stages, but nothing had ever felt as urgent or as right as what he was planning now. At his glass-paneled office, staff whispered as he walked in with the old woman by his side. His assistant, Monica, raised an eyebrow. "Cancel everything today," he said without slowing down. "And call PR, events, and the media team. We're throwing a party." "A party?" Monica blinked. "For what?" Daniel stopped and turned. "For the woman who made me believe I was worth something long before I wore a tie." Monica's expression softened. "Got it." By afternoon, the company's rooftop transformed. String lights, live music, catered food. And in the center, a banner that read, "Thank you, Mrs. Lane, the heart that built us." He didn't care if people thought it was unusual. He didn't care if the media would spin it. This wasn't about headlines. It was about her. As sunset painted the sky in soft amber, Eleanor was escorted onto the rooftop by Daniel himself. Dozens of people turned and applauded. She stopped in her tracks. "What is this?" she whispered. Daniel smiled. "A small thank you for a lifetime of quiet kindness." He led her to the front, where a microphone waited. Her picture from decades ago, surrounded by neighborhood kids, was displayed behind her on a giant screen. Daniel took the mic. "We all have someone who made us believe, before anyone else did. Someone who made sure we didn't fall through the cracks." He turned to Eleanor. "You were that person for me. And now, the whole world's going to know it." Eleanor tried to speak, but her voice caught. Tears shimmered in her eyes, not from sadness, but from being seen. And the pen she once sold for $1 had just opened a door to a room full of people clapping for her. Eleanor stood at the center of it all, blinking under the soft rooftop lights, trying to steady her breath. The room, if you could call it that, was filled with executives, journalists, former students, and strangers holding champagne glasses, all clapping for her. She looked at Daniel, stunned. "Danny, I was just selling pens." "You weren't just selling pens," he said, voice thick. "You were trying to survive in a world that should have never let you struggle in the first place." "I didn't want anyone to feel sorry." "This isn't pity," he interrupted. "This is honor." He turned back to the mic and motioned to the screen behind them. "Let me tell you who Mrs. Eleanor Lane really is." A slideshow began. Black and white photos of neighborhood bake sales, school science fairs, handwritten report cards. Then came the letters. Old thank you notes scanned from now-grown kids, many of whom were now doctors, lawyers, entrepreneurs, and teachers. One message flashed in bold. "If it weren't for Mrs. Lane's lunch bag, I would have gone hungry every day in 4th grade. I never told her, but she saved me. T.S." The room fell silent. Eleanor covered her mouth. "All this time?" she whispered. Then Daniel handed her a small black box. Inside, a gold pen, engraved with one sentence, "The woman who never stopped giving." But that wasn't all. He handed her another envelope. As she opened it, her eyes widened. Inside was a deed to a fully furnished home close to a garden park. Paid in full. "No more corners," he said gently. "No more cold nights. You gave me a future. I'm giving you peace." Eleanor couldn't hold back the tears anymore. Not because of the house, not because of the gifts, but because, for the first time in a long, hard life, she mattered out loud. The room stood once more, this time in reverent applause. Not for a celebrity, not for a CEO, but for the woman who once packed snacks, stitched buttons, and whispered encouragement into the hearts of lost children. And now, her story was being told, with all the light it always deserved. The days that followed the rooftop celebration were a blur of phone calls, letters, and surprise visits. News outlets ran headlines like, "From street corner to spotlight, the woman who inspired a CEO. The forgotten hero of Maple and Fifth." But Eleanor didn't seek fame. She still wore the same shoes, still brewed her tea the same way. Only now she sipped it from a porch she could finally call hers. Daniel visited often, sometimes with flowers, sometimes with old classmates who had heard the story and wanted to thank her in person. One afternoon, he brought a group of 5th graders from a local school. He had started a scholarship fund in Eleanor's name, the Lane Foundation, for kids being raised by single parents or grandparents or no one at all. "We want them to have a little of what you gave us," he told her. Eleanor looked around at the children laughing in her yard. She pressed a hand over her heart. "I didn't do anything special," she said. Daniel knelt beside her chair. "You showed up. When no one else did. That's more special than anything." One evening, as the sun dipped behind the park near her home, Eleanor sat beneath the willow tree Daniel had planted for her. In her lap, the engraved gold pen. By her feet, a stack of new notebooks the scholarship kids had left her. And on the first page of one was a letter written in a child's handwriting. "Dear Mrs. Lane, thank you for being a real hero. I want to be like you when I grow up. Kind, brave, loud with my heart." She closed the notebook and smiled through soft tears. Because the pens she once sold for survival had written a story that would never fade. A story about how kindness never retires, how quiet heroes are sometimes found on street corners, and how one woman's simple acts wrote a future for everyone who ever crossed her path.